got two halves of the draw with two completely different stories. New faces, rising stars in semi-final number one, and two superpowers in semi-final number two. Time for the first semi-final in the men's recurve competition. The rain still falling here in the German capital, but job number one done by the pair of these athletes, picking up individual quotas for Paris 2024.
Number one, representing Indonesia.
Auf Scheibe Nummer 1 für Indonesien,
Arif Pangestu. On target number 2, representing Canada.
auf Scheibe Nummer 2 für Kanada,
Eric Peters. The line judge for this matchup is
der Kampfrichter für dieses Match ist
Wu Tsugi.
So here we go. Arif Pangestu from Indonesia, the one number 192, is 19 years old, taking on Eric Peters, world number 31 from Canada. He's just 26 years old. And the character in the box with Eric Peters, Joe Lesnar, loves Chef, my expert commentator. We all love Chef, really. I pretend not to sometimes. Sometimes you can be a bit difficult. He's a know-it-all.
You don't really yell it out every 5 minutes or
I
so.
try not to. When we're on air, at least. Yeah, but we've got a big one here, and it's interesting to point out how the Canadians are handling this. Start of recurve semi-final number one.
That was one of the quickest shots I have ever seen Eric Peters shoot.
And it didn't work. Right into the 7.
8-8.
Yeah, so talking about the tactics, the pair of them stay very calm and relaxed on the shooting line, but there's a little bit of humour and jest going on in the Canadian box, very much to keep Eric Peters grounded.
Yeah, I think it's truly to just put things in perspective and to remind him that, well, everybody's just human.
10.
26 going to be enough to win the first set? Yes, it is.
9.
Wow.
We shouldn't forget that even though we've seen some of the archers shoot amazing in these weather circumstances, it's actually not that easy to do really well because there is a lot of things that happen when it's rain. So obviously your bow grip is going to be more slippery. Your tab is going to, your finger tab typically is made out of leather and will soak up some of the water, so it's going to feel different. Your arrows are going to be wet, your string is going to be wet, so there's a lot of things that you need to keep into account to think about. And you can see it here, whenever he releases, just a splash of water is coming off the bow and off the arrow. So a lot of things to keep in mind when you're shooting in these conditions, and that makes it quite challenging at times.
Yeah, there is Joe Lesnar, the centre of attention, despite his athlete being in the semi-finals here in Canada. It's interesting as well, because you say it can be a challenge, it's an additional thing to think about, but sometimes you see athletes when they've given this sort of external challenge, even a little minor injury, and all of a sudden they just think, oh, well, this is difficult, and they kind of relax, and they shoot at their very best.
Famously, the world record for the World Archery 1440 round for women is 1,405 points, set by Park Seung-gyun, and she was injured in her wrist. She couldn't, she had lost nearly all of her grip strength, so she could barely hold onto the string, and she shot the highest score on the World Archery 1440 round, or FIDA round as many people still call it, ever. So
yeah, it's amazing what how one thing can affect one person one way and completely opposite stands for someone else.
But let's not get too distracted from the match.
Well, certainly
9.
Arif Pangestu on a 26. He's left the door open wide here. Peters, the Canadian, gets a 28 and he kind of shrugs his shoulders as if that kind of came easy to him.
Well, I think it was more a shrug, like, okay, it's a 9, but that was enough. Eric is very aware of what the other person will be shooting, what he needs to shoot, what he's shooting, if it's good enough or not. So he has that awareness, which is, I think, to him both a curse and a blessing. Because he is micro aware, or hyper aware, I should maybe say, but he also finds that troubling at sometimes.
It clouds the process requirement.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's interesting to see this difference. We're seeing it right here. The Indonesians very steady, very calm. They probably had a couple of words, but now they're silent, just looking down, trying to almost take a little time off mentally before coming back out to shoot. Pangestu. For Eric Peters, look, I'm not going to shy away from saying this. Joe Lesnar's behaving like a clown. He's jumping around all over the place. But he could be proved to be a genius if Peters goes on and gets up. If he wins this, he's got a silver medal at the World Championships. This is a genius, a stroke of genius from Lesnar.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't go as far as calling Joe a genius, because he'll walk around with his head in the clouds.
You criticise me calling him a genius, but not a clown.
I don't want Joe to walk around with his head in the clouds for the rest of the for the rest of the Olympic cycle. But yeah, I think he definitely has a point in he's really just actively putting things in perspective.
Set number 3 of this semi-finals. Pangestu must get on board here.
9.
8.
8.
9.
You can hear the crowd laughing there for the German announcer calling out the arrow score in English, and then realizing, oh wait, I'm the German announcer, so I should actually do the German score. Important arrow here.
Yeah. Oh, he's clipped that 10 ring. And he is on the scoreboard. He's put this set out of reach.
9.
A couple of 9s to finish for a 26, matching the score he got in the first set, which he won. Peters 26, not enough this time around. And Arif Pangestu from Indonesia is now just 2 set points behind. And looking like his performance trajectory is going in the right direction.
Yeah, it does look like that indeed. And well, just looking at the score, that's also what's happening. But the difference between the two of them is that Arif Pangestu is really staying calm and just really, it seems like task-minded. Whereas Eric shows a bit more emotion and it's more up and down in his emotion. But I think that's also on purpose. He's doing that because he knows that's going to work best for him, not to try to block those emotions, not hide them. Just have emotions and be okay with that. Just own it.
Yep. Certainly seems to be the case right now. So go to set number 4. Rain still falling here, but perhaps not quite as heavy. Athletes seem to be able to manage it at this level. Umbrella's starting to pop up again though. And we go into the 4th set. It's another one where Arif Pangestu has to get on the scoreboard. Has to at least get 1 point.
It's a really good arrow for Arif to start this off with. And I think the most difficult part of the range so far is not necessarily the fact that it's raining, but the fact that it's gonna rain hard and then it's kind of dying down a bit, and then it starts raining harder again. So it's not consistent. So you constantly have to adjust to that. I think that's the biggest challenge right now when it comes to that rain.
Can he do it? He's put this out of reach, and the scores are going to be tied up after 4 sets. An interesting topic to continue debating as we go into the 5th. This rain and the conditions, the conditions about getting colder. I had a question for you earlier on that I forgot to ask, so I'm going to ask it now. If you come out and shoot and win, and you're drenched, you're soaked through, do you change? Do you just get out of all those clothes and put dry clothes on?
Well, that's a good question, because that would also mean that you don't only change clothes, you also change the way it all feels. You've gotten used to being wet, maybe. Whereas if you then go into dry clothes, you're going to have to readjust, and then with the risk of getting more and more wet throughout the match. So that's going to make the circumstances change throughout the match. Whereas if you just go into the match soaked and end the match soaked, it's going to be consistent at least.
I like the thinking, I like the theory, but surely it's most uncomfortable to hang around for at least half an hour between the quarters and the semis.
Yeah, or maybe, I don't know, they'll put on a jacket to stay warm.
Yeah, it is an interesting one to think about, because of course there's all these little factors that people don't necessarily think about. The change of feel, having to just pull a little bit, perhaps in a little bit of a different way because your t-shirt's soaked. All square here in this first semi-final in the recurve men's discipline. Peters versus Pangestu.
And a good arrow there for Eric to start off this set.
Momentum with the Indonesian, but he didn't like the look of that.
There was a bit of a grimace on his face when he released that. And it made sense because the release was more plucky.
Peters has put himself in an excellent position here.
9.
So, 26 is the most that Pangestu can get. An 8 will do it. A 10 will definitely do it. And look at that. He's really getting into his groove. That's it for Pangestu. And Eric Peters has made the World Championship gold medal match. The Canadian through to the final. And I'm not sure anyone would have predicted that. Pangestu, well, he's booked Indonesia a place at Paris 2024, but more importantly right now, he's got a shot at a medal in the bronze medal match, which will come up after the second semi-final. But this is working for Eric Peters today.
Yeah, it's working for sure. You could also see that he was growing into the match and growing more comfortable. But what I also thought was interesting, the difference in how happy he was with the quarterfinal compared to how happy he's winning this one. The quarterfinal felt like a victory for him, and I feel like this for him felt like a hurdle he needed to overcome on his way to a World Championship.